Okay. And I'm going to read the intro that you gave us.
Okay.
And we'll just start. This is just, this is fun. This is not anything,
I'm good with the organic and flying by the seat of the pants. I'm all good with that.
Yes. And I've listened
the ebb and flow.
Yeah. And like, you're brilliant at what you do for broadcasting too. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I'm a huge fan. Okay. So, okay. So I'll go ahead and start. Let me just move this over here. Okay. Welcome to another episode of Matrix Assassins. Ameera Atlantis is a multidimensional teacher and healer for the new Atlantis. As an incarnated Atlantean merbeing, she holds the ancient philosophy, wisdom, and knowledge of the great kingdoms of Atlantis and Lemuria. In her DNA and soul, remembrance. Ameera is a direct conduit to the Mer world, the sacred feminine, and to the element of water. She brings forth messages from Ocean Mother Yamaya, Archangel Metatron, and teaches sacred geometry. Her mission and passion is to inspire and ignite the remembrance of purpose for incarnation in others through their own connection to soul origins and sovereignty. Sovereignty. I can never. Okay, I'm going to redo that. Hold on.
Close enough.
Is to inspire and ignite the remembrance of purpose for incarnation in others through their own connection to soul origins and sovereignty. Ameera Atlantis is an intuitive healer, advanced level past life regressionist, author, and conscious clothing retailer. She lives on the beautiful island of Kauai and hosts retreats yearly. Ameera, thank you so much for stepping into the game with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me, ladies. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We are, again, like I said offline, our inner child are jumping up for joy right now. But so before we begin, I have to know this one question, and that is, mermaids are real, right?
Of course we are.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, so for our audience, how about you give us a rundown of who you are and your soul journey through the Mer lineage?
Okay, that's a super long story, so I'll try to do like the
bird's eye view,
the Reader's Digest version. I had my awakening in life, my spiritual awakening, kind of late. Like I think I was like about 38 or 39 years old. I'm 54 now, so kind of what I feel like is on the late side. And when it happened, it was like a sledgehammer or like a 2x4. Kind of came and slapped me up against the head and said, hey, remember, you're supposed to be doing all this stuff and you're supposed to be like learning all this stuff out in the world. I was just a mother and a wife driving a minivan and living in the suburbs when it all came down, when I went through this really kind of radical awakening through actually watching a show on Oprah about women around the world on Oprah.
Oh, wow. So you were very like enmeshed into the Matrix.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I always went
like we all were,
healers, but I went for things like, is my boyfriend ever going to love me? And all like the silly things that, that sometimes we start out going to psychics and healers for. And I read like a couple metaphysical books that my mentor and the person, that had kind of walked with me through that time gave me. But I was so kind of connected into the Matrix and just, I grew up Catholic, I was telling you earlier, but it was like a shoe that never fit, but it was all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what my family did. And so, I was baptized Catholic, my children, I baptized them all Catholic because I just didn't know that there was like anything else out there, even though it never really felt like quite right to my soul to like, to go to a Catholic church and go through all the indoctrination and things. So, when I learned about, read about the law of attraction and read about goddess like source and spirit and universe and all these other terms and things that we use sort of in the metaphysical world, and learned how to meditate and started really reading all the books that were out there and available to us to like kind of walk us through our awakening. It was just like, pow, 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 pow. Like just I was like
all directions,
the Matrix all over the place. And my name called in the middle of the night, and I kind of thought I was losing my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody around me was going through what I was going through. Like the person I was married to, not at all. none of the friends that we had, no one in my family. So I was suddenly on this journey, shoved into this journey of awakening that I couldn't talk to anybody about, and I couldn't describe to anybody. And I really kind of felt like I was losing my mind. And when I went to, my psychic and sat down in front of her shortly after it all started, I just started crying. I said, I don't know what's happening to me. I'm reading these books and I'm hearing my name. And I said, I feel like I'm losing my mind. And I was just bawling. And she looks at me, she says, oh, you've woken up. I've been waiting years for this. And I went, put me back to sleep. I don't.
Oh, yes.
I don't like it. And she's like, nope, once the awakening starts, there's no going back. And she kind of laid out the next years of my life about, what I would be doing, what I would be learning, what I was here to do, that I was here to be more than a wife and a mother, that I was actually here to step into the spiritual revolution that I didn't even know was happening. No one told me this was going on, right? And so as kind of crazy as that sounded, I also had this overwhelming feeling of, oh my God, I have a purpose. I was kind of just going through my life as a wife and a mommy and doing this and doing that. And I thought that was my purpose in this world, but it never really felt complete. It always felt like a little anticlimactic, like there was something I was missing. And when I started to remember and discover what I was missing, and most of my remembrances came from past life regressions. My Mer remembrance, my Atlantean remembrance, once I started receiving all those downloads and turning them over in my head and trying to make sense of them and moving forward on what is supposed to be my path, even though no one around me was walking or sharing the path, it all began to unfold and reveal itself. And now, 13, 14 years later, and so much has happened. Here I am.
Amazing. So this brings me to my next question, which would be so now you've stepped into your Mer lineage. Who are the Mer beings?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Who are the Mer? That's a really huge question. So the Mer we are not elementals. We are similar to elementals, but we're not like, the elves and the fairies and some of the inner earth beings that people consider to be elementals. We are kind of like a cousin to them or similar, but we're kind of our own entity. The Mer beings, and I'll just jump right into the really wild stuff.
Let's dive in. Buckle up, everybody.
Most of the Mer came from the blue star planet, the blue water planet called Mintaka, which is the westernmost star in Orion's belt. Okay. It's the blue water planet. And when, Earth was originally formed by, Source or by Prime Creator, when the Earth took form, the first element that came to Earth was water. And it came predominantly from Mintaka, and the Mer fell with the water to the Earth. And we know the Earth was covered in water 100% because we know about the seashells and the deserts and things like that. Science tells us that. But water is extraterrestrial. Water is off planet. And when it fell to Earth, it was more like the water in Mintaka was more liquid plasma light. It wasn't exactly like the H2O that we know now that evolved over many, many, eons of time. So the liquid plasma light with the Mer and a lot of the cetaceans fell to the Earth as first element way, way, way back in the beginning. So the Mer have always been here. We have always been here. We are interdimensional beings, like you would think of, an extraterrestrial. We're along that, in that sort of frame of reference. We came to the Earth and we were part of what created the organizing structures and physical matter that eventually all evolved into planet Earth. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this just goes back to the importance of our water. I feel like I have this strong connection to water. I've been researching water filtration systems and structured water, which is all very important. Yes. We have to realize that water is the only element in the entire world, in the entire galaxy that holds the entire periodic table. Yes. It is supposed to embody what our plasma is.
And it holds every memory of everything. All water on this planet is original water. All water on this planet is one water. So when, you sweat, that water gets evaporated up into the air, into the atmosphere with your DNA, your cells goes up, comes down into the oceans and lakes. Our drinking water, we drink that, and we're constantly recycling all those memories and all those particles of ourself in the universe through water that has been here since the beginning of time.
That's the craziest part, is water never leaves. All the water that's been here since the beginning of time is still on this planet. And then when you think about the fact that we are 70% water.
Yeah.
So this leads me to how many people here on Earth are having this remembrance of being mer people, and how does this connect with Atlantis and
Yes, that's what I want to know too.
Yeah. We'll start with the rise of the mer and the rise of the sacred feminine. So perfect. We have seen over the last 5 to 10 years, maybe, the mermaid iconography is just huge out in the world. Mermaid tails, girls and boys.
The blankets.
Yeah.
The blanket. I have a blanket. I have a tail.
Do you have the leggings?
I've got all the things, right? The whole idea of little girls and even some boys wanting to be a mermaid, and little kids claiming coming into their bodies. I mean, I've met them. They're like, I'm a mermaid. Like, I just know I'm a mermaid. Kids of all ages, men and women of all ages, are so identified with the myth and the mysterious and the mythology of the mer. It's a whole thing out in the world. And we see, the Starbucks icon, and we see different various icons and logos and things like that. And the mer is just everywhere. And there's a really good reason for that. The mer, for a very long time, we have had to kind of stay in the deep waters and sort of out of the limelight. We have had to kind of stay hidden or cloaked while this evolution of the planet really kicked in hard, because the mer are also kind of a hunted species, and I'll go into that later. So for our own, we have held the water grids with the cetaceans for eons of times, waiting to emerge back into not the unconscious, but the collective consciousness of humanity at this time. The mer hold the grids. We are the foundation of the sacred feminine. So this rise of the goddess energy that we've seen coming forward the last 10, 20 years, really hugely, is because of all the women and some men, but mostly the women, who have incarnated onto this planet as an aspect of the mer. We hold that. We're bringing that forward.
And what are the cetaceans that you mentioned?
Cetaceans are like the dolphins.
The dolphins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just in case.
It's a fancy name. It's a fancy
name.
Yeah, I actually heard this amazing theory. I guess I wouldn't say theory, but maybe theory. But the dolphins, they help assist in the rising of the collective consciousness, because they are vortexing the waters, and they swim in sacred geometry under the water. Can you touch on that a little bit?
100%. So, there's an artist by the name of Francine Hart, who I think lives on the Big Island. And she does these sacred geometry cards they're very Hawaiian themed. And so if you look at some of her art and some of the art that is out there, you will see that dolphins especially swim naturally in sacred geometry formations. Like, it's just a part of what they are and how they interact. And they weave those grids and they hold those geometric forms and patterns, those light grids, in the oceans for, you know, for humanity. And the mer, we obviously aren't in the ocean, aren't physical as they are. We do that from the dimension we reside in within the water also. And then the mer, who are incarnated, who are, you know, humans in mer form. And there's many, many, many of us, more than who you can imagine. And, you know, I've talked very publicly for a long time about being an incarnated Atlantean mer being. Started my YouTube channel and started talking very openly about it. And I have just had throngs of women come forward and say, thank you. Like, thank you, because I've always felt this is a real thing for me. Can't talk to anybody about it. Like, I can't really say that I'm an incarnated mer being, but when you start to understand the multidimensionality of the soul, that we have this, you know, this higher self, this oversoul that splits itself up into many dimensions and realities and versions of itself, of you, in different forms and non-forms all over the universe. You start to open your mind to what's possible, who you are. We hear we're all of it, right? We hear we're like the whole universe. Well, that's really true, because our oversoul is so vast that there are versions of you and versions of me and many timelines, dimensions, realities, in all these different forms, whether that be mer, fairy, you know, unicorn, star person, angelic, anything you can wrap your mind around, there is a version of you that is that. And so right now it was very important that many, many beings come in as mer. Incarnated mer. So the strongest, I hold many, many aspects, many multi-dimensionals, as do you both. The one that I'm working through the strongest, my main aspect, is my mer aspect, because of the messages here that I was meant to bring from Yamaya, who is the African ocean mother goddess, and from my mer people, and from Atlantis, to help with the birthing of the rising of the new Atlantean paradigm.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
Take a breath.
Okay, so let's just sit here for a second, because there's a lot of things that I have questions about. So let's go back to talking about being incarnated as a mer person and how you identified with that. For our listeners, if there's people that are listening this for the first time and this message is really resonating with them, what are some of the things that are signs or symptoms, so to speak, that would mean that maybe they have incarnated as a mer person before?
You know, I would say the number one thing is you just know it in your heart. You just know it. It's a soul resonance. You've thought it, you've felt it, you hear me speak it, and your soul is screaming, yes, I am mer. Then you are.
And what was it like when you met the first other mer being for the first time, or how did you find them?
The most dramatic thing for me was finding out that I was a mer.
Oh yeah.
Like I had to I had a past life regression. I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time with my family, and I was still like full along in my awakening. And I started having these movements happen in my hands and arms and my body, where it would do this by itself, like without me doing anything, just yielding to it. And my hands and arms would move in these beautiful, like swimmy, graceful positions. And I found that if I just kind of went with it, I could work on energy centers and take away, you know, headaches and relax my children. And I started feeling I had something coming through me that was me, but that was kind of like beyond me. And I didn't know what it was. So I went to a past life regression therapist, and she put me on the couch and put me in hypnosis. And I immediately went into the water and started jumping on her couch like this, going up and down, just going, I'm a mermaid, and doing the physical movements on her couch. And fortunately, she was very, very skilled, very well trained, a woman who eventually became my mentor in past life regression therapy. And she just said, oh, tell me about that. You know, she just played right into it with me, because my left brain wanted to go, what are you doing? Well, this can't be real, right? But in my visioning, in my regression, I felt myself swimming down into the waters, into an underwater city, which I called Atlantis, or Merlantis is the mer world. And through that remembrance and that experience, on her couch, I swam into the mer world, met other mer etherically, and it catapulted me like into this whole like dynamic that I absolutely never expected, like this whole quest from my soul just to accept and discover more about being mer, and like really claim the fact that I am an incarnated mer being. So that kind of kicked everything off. And to answer your question about meeting other mer, it was a relief.
I'm sure.
When I started, making a couple of friends, they're like, oh yeah, we're mer too. I'm like, really? And you say that out loud?
So what was, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it just gave me my confidence, I guess. And it just propelled me even more to start really speaking my truth.
Did that give you a sense of wholeness? This, because you had mentioned in the past that you're walking through life and you feel unfulfilled and this is what life is supposed to be. And now all of this happens. You realize you're a mer person. And so how does that catapult you to the next steps? Like, how did you make the move towards what you are doing now?
It took me a while to really wrap my mind around it, because again, most of the people who were around me weren't really awakened, or if they were, it was like, we weren't really journeying parallel. So I did a lot of reading. The first thing I do is started reading everything I could get my hands on that had to do with, the mermaids and mer beings. I read a lot of Doreen Virtue. Back in the day, she wrote a lot of books around that. And anything that would help me feel resonant or help me feel like I kind of wasn't losing my mind. But the call of it and the truth of it was so strong within me that I couldn't say no. And I actually changed my name. I was not born Ameera. I was born Elizabeth. And Spirit said to me one day, you're going to change your name and walk into your mermaid name. And that's how you're going to move this energy through life. So they gave me my name, Ameera, and I kept the Beth on the end because I was called Beth growing up. I changed my name legally to Ameera Beth. And of course, my family was like, what are you doing?
Oh, no.
That's not what I named you. And I'd been going by Ameera for some years unofficially. And when I changed it legally, it just threw everybody in my life for a loop, because I was fucking serious. Like, I'm doing this and this is who I am. And you can call me whatever you want, but going forward in the world professionally and legally, I am now Ameera Beth. When many people go through spiritual transitions, and up-levelings, initiations, it's common in history for people to take on like a new name and a new identity.
Like your soul name.
Yeah, to enhance or to carry that vibration more fully and more authentically. So I did that too. And then I opened up my YouTube channel and just really started speaking publicly and openly about, my mer lineage and claiming my name and what it meant to be mer, and encouraging other people either through past life regression, which I became a past life regression therapist, or through journeying or meditation or whatever you want to do to discover more about who you are. Maybe you're mer, maybe you're a star being, maybe you're from the angelic realm. Like, all of us come from somewhere else. Like, we are so much greater, and our multidimensionalness is so much more profound than we are led to believe when we come here, right?
Amen. Yes, 100,000,000%. Yes.
And I've been beating the drum of like, step into your soul origin, just explore those parts of yourself that are true, that are meta-human, beyond human. Like, we are meta-human, cosmic, superdimensional meta-human beings, every single one of us. And you guys, our DNA was turned down, our cellular memory was turned down, all of that. And when we start to go in and explore how the greatness of our soul and the history of our soul, and start to embody maybe more of who we're really meant to be and how we're meant to act out in the world through our multidimensional aspects, which are interacting with us. They're talking to us. Sometimes we know it, sometimes we don't. Oh, shoot.
Oh, that's
okay. We can edit it.
Yeah.
Turn that phone off. When we start to be brave enough to explore that, it starts to build this whole different idea of how powerful we are and how profound we are and how impactful we can be on changing the paradigms of this earth. And, you know, what I call raising the new Atlantis.
And so when you talk about raising the new Atlantis, how would you describe it? Like, what will it be once it happens?
So I don't know how much you both know about Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis. I'm here to really speak directly to, to the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria.
I would love to, let's get into that, because for anyone who might not know about it, I think it's good to just do, like a recap and from your perspective.
And from anybody who is more, wants to learn more than just this little time here, I have a full YouTube channel with videos, and I talk all about this. So if you want some more information, that's a good resource. But Atlantis.
What's your YouTube channel name? Just so people can.
It's under Ameera Healer.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And so Atlantis and Lemuria were a real thing. They were real physical lands on a timeline on this planet. Atlantis had 5 different incarnations, 5 different risings and fallings. When Prime Creator decided to know itself in duality and know each other and know itself in a deeper form, many, throngs of beings from all over the galaxy volunteered to come to planet Earth and embody a human form. So the beings who came here to the great land, to the kingdoms of Atlantis, to all the different incarnations were in an experiment. We experimented. We wanted to see if we could show up in a 3D body, because we were all, 5D and above at that time. We weren't physical. Come down and be in a 3D body and remember our 5th dimensional connection to source, to remember our connection, remember that we are spirit, remember our unity, remember our oneness, like remember all the things that we're kind of trying to do now, like trying to go back to. We came in as fully embodied and realized 3D beings, whole and complete in our masculine, feminine, whole and complete in our memories and in our consciousness. Understanding that we have a direct line to spirit at all times, a direct channel to spirit. There is no competition. There is no, envy. There is no shortages. There is no lack. We have everything we need inside of us, and everything in Atlantis was provided for the Atlanteans. Now, keep in mind, it was much simpler times. They didn't demand as much as so we all demand here, but they were all well provided for. Everybody had everything they needed. There was no lack or want. So I speak mostly about the last fall of Atlantis, which was 13,000 years ago. There was 5 rises and fallings. I speak mostly to the golden age, because that's really the most important to what we're trying to course correct on this timeline. So during the last fall of Atlantis, when all beings came back for another experiment, because in every experiment, after ego was inserted and technology was inserted, because when you have an experiment, you have to add a variable, right? Mm-hmm. If it's a utopia the whole time, if you're hitting a home run every day and your hair is perfect every day and your skin's perfect there's no challenges. There's nothing to challenge the idea of, can we retain our 5th dimensional connection and a 3rd dimensional human body with emotions and all the good things we get being human, namely emotions. We're emotionally based creatures. Our emotions rise and fall, they ebb and flow, that they are what separates us, basically from anything else. So that we all got emotions, we all got a body.
Yeah, energy and motion, emotions. Yeah.
Yes.
True.
And so during the last fall and during all the falls, also there was the introduction of technology, of helping the people run more efficiently. We use crystals, we use all the different Reikis, all of those different energetic things also, but it was really the introduction of technology and the up-leveling of the society. Go ahead, I see you have a question.
Yeah, could you interchange artificial intelligence synonymously with technology?
Girl, we're gonna get that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what the technology was like too.
100%.
Okay.
The introduction of artificial intelligence, which technology and artificial intelligence itself is not a bad thing. Like, it helps us a lot in life. but the misuse of it and the power over giving that too much power over human connection, over humanity, over, all the things we're here to embody as spiritual beings. Of course, that happened in Atlantis. And also the introduction of ego, where, and by the way, we all knew it was going to be an experiment. We hear a lot that Atlantis was a failure. It wasn't a failure. Atlantis was just an experiment that when the variable was inserted to see what would happen, and we all agreed to experiment, because that's what we are, creators and experimenters, right? When ego was introduced, where, some of the scientists and the really high level leaders and teachers were like, hey, you're really good at your job. You're actually better than this guy working next to you. How come you live in the same house? How come you dress the same as this guy? You're clearly much better at your job. So it's the idea of competition, of envy. All those things came in through what we call the dark element, and the dark element was let in purposely to see how the experiment would go, right? Mm-hmm. We are eternal beings. We are energy that just rises and falls and changes forms. When we came here, we knew we were eternal beings and that there was no death. We come to Earth as a big, giant playground to be creators, to be experimenters, because if we stay in spirit form, after a while, that might get a little boring, right? Mm-hmm. Not having any challenges. So the idea of ego, the idea of artificial intelligence, all that was pre-planned, and we knew before we came that would eventually be given to us, and we would see what we would do with it. Would we still remember our oneness? Would we still remember our eternal connection to the divine and to one another? Because we have the veil of forgetfulness, which we all get when we become human. Of course, we're in Atlantis and we forgot that was the plan, right? Yeah. And so after the idea of technology and ego and emotions started to come into play, and the integrity of Atlantis and the frequency of Atlantis started to become compromised through, through these, what we would call darker negative emotions and acts and things like that. That's when, the structure of the fifth dimensional connection began to break down. And all of us who are Atlantean, in this experiment, began to go through this change that would eventually lead to the fall of Atlantis. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. I'm just hearing a lot of similarities of kind of what we're going through now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the good news is 13,000 years ago, Atlantis was taken down. The experiment ended, and Atlantis fell beneath the waves because, the frequency, the structure, the integrity, the technology, all of it became stronger and more powerful than the Atlanteans' connection to divine source and the remembrance to divine source. So Prime Creator said, okay, time to end the experiment. And of course, there was a lot of sadness and pain and suffering when Atlantis went down. I remembered my own death in that lifetime. I remember the death of my family, and I have done regressions and reconnection sessions for Atlantis and Lemuria for many, many, many people who've needed to go and have a soul retrieval or heal that timeline or remember their gifts or remember their part they played personally in Atlantis and in the fall of Atlantis. And there's a lot of healers out there who are under the impression that they screwed it all up, that it was their fault.
How come?
Okay, so I think it's a thing anyway with, healers and teachers and, wayshers, whatever you want to call us, who know about Atlantis, that there was a failure, that they didn't remember their spiritual connection. They didn't do their job right, and they were part of what took Atlantis down. Well, there's a lot who feel like they were personally responsible for the whole demise of Atlantis. And the reason for that is, first of all, cellular memory. These things come through, these remembrances of other lifetimes start to come through. We start to learn, we start to remember, we start to go, oh gosh, I was there. But the other thing that happened right at the very last minute when Atlantis sank and we all went down was the dark did something they weren't supposed to. They came in and they whispered in every teacher, healer, priest, priestess ear, it's your fault, you did this. And hijacked the idea that we could die. We don't die, that we could die in this lifetime and go back up and go, okay, well, that didn't work out so good. What do we do next? So instead, many, many, many beings died with that trauma or that lie in their head that they were personally responsible for the demise of Atlantis and they have to come back and fix everything, which is not true. Okay. It was nobody's fault. It was an experiment that ended because it was time for the experiment to end, and there was nobody personally responsible, and we are all responsible for rewriting and healing the timeline of Atlantis, what I call course correcting. Okay, so on December 21st, on the solstice this last year during the Grand Conjunction, okay, something really magical happened during that Saturn and Jupiter alignment. This planet went through the centrifugal center point where we came through the other side and we've begun to rewrite or course correct that 13,000 year cycle that we have came through up until that date. Does that make sense? Okay, so we went through the center point, like the apex of all the unraveling and, remember all the truth things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the awakening.
All the revealings that came out, that huge awakening that happened 2020 and before, like it all culminated on that moment. Okay, so at that point, as we came through that central physical center point, we have begun collectively to rewrite and course correct the mistakes, the failures, whatever you want to call it, the AI that's trying to like take over and repeat the same timeline. Okay, so the good news is it's not going to take 13,000 years to rewrite. I don't know how long it's going to take. That's up to us as a collective. But even though it seems that things are kind of getting worse or maybe staying the same, and that the AI technology is still very, very high in play, and it is, and it is. We're at the peak of it right now. Like we're at the height of it. Okay, so as more and more awakening comes through, and more of us realize, and how we're course correcting this is we're recognizing that the AI is here in some format, but when we remember to live close to nature and remember to stay as organic in our food supply and what we inject into our bodies as possible, right? As we remember, human connection trumps everything. Connection to nature trumps everything. So there are kind of a couple of timelines being written right now. And one is the timeline for those of us who really understand our symbiosis with God and nature and life and with one another, and who understand that at sometimes you have to put your cell phone down or your laptop down or whatever you're connected to and remember what's real. This virtual reality that we're being so pressed into, this AI world that is like so everywhere, like this is really cool. We all get to do this. Like this is a big, big win for us in the world to do this, but it will never, ever trump human connection and connection to the natural world. So those of us who consciously understand how to disconnect ourselves energetically, and I have been teaching people about, fortifying their aura, strengthening your auric field, using Metatron's cube and sacred geometry to strengthen your aura and to shield yourself and to bring your energy here, your energy here for many, many years. And I'm just now realizing why I've been teaching that for so long, because us as energetic humans and us tapping into ourselves as our own antenna of vibrating energy and being generated from source and nothing else from God and this planet. Okay, if we can bring that as above, so below into our, into our field, into our energy centers. I work with the 13 Atlantean chakras and hold that as truth and clear ourselves and stay true to the natural world. We are going to visit a timeline that is not going to be affected in the same way as the timeline of the folks who are completely still lost in the matrix, lost in thinking that they need to inject something into their bodies, that they don't know what's in that thing to keep them safe, eating the GMOs, taking in all things, if you think about even the Fitbit watches.
Yeah.
you're connected to AI 24/7.
Yep.
And so it's
just so you know, this isn't one, this is an EMF protected.
No.
But don't judge us over here. We're not
I already know you know better, right? So a lot of humans, they just don't know. Like they don't know what's happening to them. And the timeline, whatever timeline we are set upon or our soul is set upon, that is dictated by our soul and nothing else. Not everybody is here to ride the ascension or the new Atlantis timeline. That's just not what their soul signed up for. They signed up to come play on planet Earth in this other paradigm, maybe another lifetime or 2 or 3 or 10 to understand and recognize and disconnect from the AI. And in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing wrong with that because we are eternal and we do get free will. And we do get to play in the quantum field and the matrix world as much as we want to, if we want to. When we go through an awakening, and we go through, become a ninja of the matrix, and understanding, whoa, I can be in the world, but not of it. Like this is where we're at.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We're
in the world, but not of it.
And we're going to utilize the technology like to help us in life. And, it moves my business forward in life. It allows me to connect with people all over the world. Right.
Yeah.
And, I'm in my car and I got my Siri and I'm like, okay, I'm in the AI world right now. And it's like this conscious realization that it can be an asset to my life and benefit my life, but it is not my identity. And it is not real. I get out of my car, I shut off my phone, I go out and I jump in the ocean, I hang out on the beach, go hike on Kauai, I touch Mother Earth, I touch Mama Kauai, I talk to my friends, I talk to the elementals. That's reality. And I go back and we have to kind of like erase or like, disintegrate all that enters our field that is scattering and confusing people and distorting their ability to stay connected to God and stay connected to this planet.
Exactly. And that's why we brought you on and that's honestly the core of what Matrix Assassins is because people will remember it's just a variety of topics that we're trying to introduce, but like you had just said, yes, you're correct, like it's not real. And so how empowering, at first the awakening is scary and very isolating, but it's just so empowering to realize that you can step out of it, that everything that you had cared about doesn't even matter in life, and you can step out and be in nature and remember who we are. So that was beautifully well said. I'm not sure where we go from here.
The New Atlantis. I'll talk a little more about the New Atlantis. And the prime directive of our soul is joy. We're here to experience joy. Everything else is just, a byproduct. I'm here to live in as much joy and happiness as I possibly can. And when you start becoming a ninja of the matrix or assassinating the matrix and recognizing the programs, whether they're artificial or emotional programs that have been put upon us by our parents, by our ancestors, by society, by the media, when you start to recognize that these are all programs and I have a choice to have that in my brain and in my body or not, then it allows us, when you disintegrate and you collapse those programs because they're not real, because if it's taking you out of joy, it's not a real thing. So whether that means we collapse our religion, and I grew up Catholic. I told you, ladies, and once I had my awakening, and I read the Da Vinci Code, and I was like, oh my God, you people have been lying to me all my life, right? And I made this very dramatic denunciation of my Catholic religion with my family, and they're like, what are you talking about, right? Because I was just like, oh my God, that program collapsed in me, and I got very angry and I got very upset until I realized I didn't really have to be mad. It's like it's fine. It was part of my learning and part of my awakening, but I did keep some of the things that are important to me from my religion are the saints and the archangels. I have a very deep affinity for Saint Mary, Mother Mary, Saint Joseph, and some of the saints in that religion, and the archangels. And it's really also important to remember that there are matrix archangels and there are the true archangel energy.
Ooh, can you dive into
There
that?
are matrix god and goddesses, and then there is the truth about these sentient beings that are around us, surrounding and supporting us. So I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. So there are some myths or some stories about some of the fall of archangels, of the archangels. Metatron, for instance, is an archangel that I work very, very closely with. He's my guide and my mentor, and like my grandfather. And I work through Metatron's cube, and I've taught sacred geometry for a very, very long time. Metatron, like everything else, has aspects. He is an oversoul, and he has different aspects. So some of the different aspects of Metatron are Tehote, Thoth, the Egyptian god. Saturn is an aspect of Metatron. Okay, so Saturn, you think about the planet Saturn, and you think about the god in mythology, that is Saturn, Roman god, I believe, who was not such a nice guy. Right. A lot of those gods and goddesses that we hear about in mythology, they did horrible things, right? They were psychopaths, essentially. And so Saturn is an aspect of Metatron that is a lower frequency or vibrational, or that we would consider something that is fallen. Okay, Metatron as a being, as an archangel, is whole and complete. But many of these different aspects, just like, remember, your oversoul has different aspects. Some of your aspects are like doing really cool, high vibrational stuff like Matrix Assassin. Some of your aspects are doing crappy stuff. Some of your aspects, some parts of your soul are like, you know, they're criminals and they're the bad guys, because we have the good and we have the bad in all of us. Anybody who's done a past life regression with me and has remembered a perpetrator lifetime, which I remember being a lot of bad people in Atlantis. I did a lot of genetic experiences. Aspects of me did genetic experiments in Atlantis. We're not always the good guys and the heroes. Sometimes we're the perpetrators. Okay, so every oversoul, every being has other aspects that are also perpetrators, or we describe as fallen, and everything has an inversion, right? So like an inversion of Metatron would be Saturn. That would be an example of that. There are inversions of symbols, like if you think about, you know, the Wiccan star, the five-pointed star, the inversion of that is what? The satanic symbol. The symbol itself is not bad. It's what you do with it.
Right. And sometimes it's infiltrated, sometimes it's taken, it's hijacked.
Correct.
Going back to Saturn, are we talking about like the Saturn time cube? Like what are we?
I would talk about in this example, like the god is Saturn.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just like an example of an aspect of Metatron's oversoul. Nothing against anybody who loves the planet Saturn or has it, you know, it's just like, again, it's just one example or one timeline or one aspect of something that has an inversion to it. Symbols have been infiltrated, like you said, and they've been inverted by matrix beings that are not of the light. Lucifer would be an example of that. I actually wonder if Lucifer is like an inversion of Archangel Metatron, because everything's got an opposite, everything's got an inversion. So there are a lot of people out there who don't understand this. And sometimes they're working with beings that they think are of the light, but they are actually an inversion of that energy. So if you ever have anybody, so my oversoul is Yemaya, the goddess Yemaya, who is the ocean goddess. She's the mother of all the fishes, and Mother Mary is an emanation of her. I am one of her significant lines of time, one of her aspects here on this planet that are carrying her message and her energy. But there are many of us out there. I am not the only one. So anytime you have somebody who says, I am the Archangel Michael, I'm the only one. Archangel Michael says, I'm him and I'm the only one at the true archangel. That is somebody who's working with an inversion, because humility and understanding our place in the greater scheme of life, and understanding that if I was to come here and be Yemaya and I'm the only one, I couldn't hold all that energy. Like I'd blow up. right? Our physical bodies are not designed to take on that amount of light. So that's why you hear like many, many women who have remembrances of being Mary Magdalene. Many women are writing about being Mary Magdalene, remember being Mary Magdalene, and have regressed or remembered being with Jesus. The reason there are many, many women carrying that message is because there needed to be many, many messengers for her message. Could it come through one person? So one person could not reach the breadth of people in the world who need to hear her message about being the feminine Christ. And one human body probably couldn't hold all her energy anyway. So I encourage people to start thinking about ourselves as grander than what we know, as multidimensional, as holding the energy of gods and goddesses and archangels and, you know, all these beings, and being able to hold that and letting that be with us to elevate us and use it out to elevate the world. And also remember at the same time to be humble and understand that we all have a sacred mission here, that every person on this planet has something significant to know, remember, and contribute. And it's our collective energy together, unifying our respect for each other, our respect for this earth, our respect for God, and our trust in ourselves that we do have a significant and unique message to carry forward, and honoring everybody else's significant and unique message also. No competition, right? No envy.
Right. There's room for everybody.
There's, you know, everybody plays, everybody wins.
Yeah.
And even though not everybody will ascend on this timeline, and I talk about the 144 who are not the amount of people who will ascend, that's a myth. That number has been inverted by religions, that there's only 144 going. It's the 144 awakened beings that will activate everybody else. Mm-hmm. Everybody whose soul came to be activated and came to go through like the gateway of ascension and into the new Atlantis. And if people didn't sign up for it in this lifetime because their soul has more experiences to have, that's okay too. They get that choice.
And I think that helps a lot of people, because I think when people have an awakening, I can speak for myself, my first thing was trying to wake other people up. Yes. And you know, all they hear is wah wah wah
yes.
wah, or like, yo, you're freaking crazy. Yeah. Like, can you like move?
And did you become like a born again Christian or like a Jehovah Witness, like going, oh my God, you have to know what I know. You have to hear the good news, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. And then
I became that too.
Exactly. And then you just learn, okay, you just plant the seed, and that's how you can kind of get people to slowly but surely, maybe they won't, maybe they will. It's really not as long as we plant seeds and we lead by example. I think that's another thing, leading by example, leading with integrity, leading with honesty. And yeah, because you just want to, like, at first I was just like trying to shake people, and I was like, how do I
assimilate? Our ego wants to win, our ego wants to save people, our ego wants to do it. And you know, and I went through that same thing. I was a crazy person for a while, and you know, I drove my family nuts and actually kind of drove them away from me because I wasn't respecting where they were at.
Exactly. And you have to meet people where they're at the end of the day. It's, you know, very karmic. It's karmic, and people choose not to awaken, and that's the other thing that we have to remember is like some people are choosing this, and that is just respect.
Yep.
So let's go back to Metatron, and I want to talk about your work with sacred geometry. When I was researching you, I didn't realize this, but Metatron means beyond the matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you talk about your work in sacred geometry and Metatron, and how that work can lead people out of the matrix, essentially?
Absolutely. And, you know, I've always said that sacred geometry is like, it's the segue out of the matrix. Everything is shapes and patterns. Everything is math. Everything is geometry. Everything is numbers. We know that, right? And so when we take something like the 5 platonic solids, which are the building blocks of our physical reality, and we place them, we use certain placements for them, put them together, they, like everything, they imbue in energy. They take on a new energetic signature. So Metatron's cube is the compilation of all 5 platonic solids, which build our entire reality, and then the spheres also, the spheres. So Metatron's cube, and I wish I had a picture of it on me, but I don't. I should have a shirt with me. I'll show you my shirts in a minute. Metatron's cube is the combination. It means many, many things. My favorite depiction or explanation, it is the combination of masculine and feminine. It's the integration of masculine and feminine. Within Metatron's cube, you have the chalice and the blade, or the upward and downward facing triangles that fit together, that are known as, you know, the Merkaba, or the chalice and the blade. Sometimes it's called the integration of the masculine and feminine. It has that. The other thing Metatron's cube has, it has 13 spheres. And the 13 spheres, 13 is a feminine number, right? It's a goddess number. And spheres are feminine. We have 13 chakras, major chakras in our body, counting the sacred soul in the middle. Okay, there's 13 spheres, and then there are 78 lines that intersect in Metatron's cube with every single sphere. So the sphere or the lines are the masculine. And if you think about the masculine and feminine, when they come together, when the masculine through his line penetrates the female and inserts into the female, they create life, they birth something new, right? The feminine can't birth without the masculine penetration. And without a destination, that line or that masculine, you know, the phallus has nowhere to go without the feminine as a destination. On Metatron's cube, every sphere is penetrated by one or more masculine lines. Okay, so it's really like a metaphor for a balancing of the masculine and feminine within us. It's a metaphor for creation. It's a metaphor for the 13 energy centers in our body, and for the template through the platonic solids that hold all of creation.
And what are the platonic solids?
So you've got the tetrahedron, which is fire. They're all associated with an element. Tetrahedron is fire. The cube is earth. The octahedron, which is 8-sided, is air. The dodecahedron, which is 12-sided, is spirit. And the icosahedron, which is 20-sided, is water.
Oh, no.
Water. Yeah, I know. Why did I blank on water?
Everybody does that. So all 5 elements integrated or associated with all 5 of the platonic solids, to give us a blueprint that aligns us with the creative force of the universe. And so there's more common ones like the flower of life. A lot of people know that, with the concentric circles building on each other, creating realities and timelines, and also showing us our individuality along with our unity. I could talk about sacred geometry. I could do a whole nother show on that. I love it.
So awesome.
Well, maybe we could be honored with you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I started working with Metatron some years ago. He came to me just after I was introduced with sacred geometry, and I was planning at my first retreat on Kauai when I lived in Portland about 8 or 10 years ago. And he started asking me to study sacred geometry and teach some courses to people. And then he asked me to put Metatron's cube on my back as a tattoo. And I was like, my whole back, Metatron? He's like, yeah, you'll find out why later. And you don't say no to an archangel, right? So I did it. My whole back is this beautiful depiction of Metatron's cube with the 3 phases of the moon at the top, the earth. I've got all the elements in there, and dolphins. It's this whole thing. And sacred geometry is a gateway. When you stare at it or study it or meditate on it or use it, it is a gateway through the matrix. It balances the right and left hemisphere of your brain. So I kind of thought, I do yoga, and I thought, well, maybe he just wants people behind me in yoga just to see it. And like, it affects people whether they know what it is or not, because they're transcendental shapes, and we all know them. They're within all of us. So even if you don't know what it is, like if you see it, will affect you, it will change you. So I'm like, okay, I have this pretty thing on my back for whatever. 8 hours in a tattoo chair. Thank you, Archangel Metatron, right? So after I moved to Kauai, I moved here about 5.5 years ago. I met a man on Kauai who had a crystal infused sacred geometry clothing company. He micronized crystals into dust and put them in the ink, and screen printed sacred geometry on organic clothing. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
What an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. That's
so I
cool.
started selling clothes for him and we became friends. And I started selling clothes for him because who wouldn't want that, right?
Exactly.
And he was kind of doing other things in life. And then several months into it, he's like, you know, Ameera, you're better at this than me. You have a passion for it. Buy my company from me. And I was like, okay.
Whoa.
And I did. And it really needed a woman's touch, and you know. And so I started using the Andara crystals instead of the 5-quartz mixture that he had, and did some different up leveling and changes. And I'll just show everybody a shirt real quick. And this is a very
wow
of Metatron's cube with the Eye of Horus in the middle and the Eye of Horus on back. And this is on a nice emerald green hemp with a kind of a glittering gold.
And for everybody that's listening, what is the name of your t-shirt company so people can find this? Because you guys, I know we don't have video. You guys have to look and see how cool this is.
It's called wisdomware.org. Wisdomware.org. And then my Insta is wisdomware_Kauai. And you can go to either of those places and you know, you can shop. I do organic bamboo and a little hemp. And some cotton, and have all the different sacred geometry symbols, and they're all infused with Andara crystals. I have this vision to put 144,000 people in my crystal infused sacred geometry clothing, because I want to utilize the energy of that number. I feel like if there's a grid of 144,000 of us all walking around in sacred geometry and crystals, like we'll create our own tribe or our own up leveling and tipping point for the collective. So that's kind of the goal.
Where are we at right now? What number are we at? Do we know?
Thousands to go. I got some thousands to go.
Okay. Well, I would love to be part. I would love to be part. So I will, you know, I cannot wait. They look amazing. I cannot wait to be one of them. So
there's always a 15% discount code on my website. So you can go in and pick. I do hoodies, I do t-shirts, I do tank tops, I do long sleeve, like long sleeve bamboo. And I just started, we were talking about water earlier. And you may have seen on my Instagram, I just launched a whole new line of water healing symbols, sacred geometry shirts based on the book by Rainey Marie Hiley called The Water Code. She channeled in this beautiful water code that unlocks the secrets in water. It's for water healing. And I just fell in love with it and got a hold of her, and she's allowed me to screen print that
so
symbol.
Cool. Oh, that's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah.
Oh, how cool.
On my clothes. So I just launched that out, and 20% of all sales go to Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii that are based in Oahu. They clean up the coastlines, they pick up the plastic, they take care of the animals. And so I'm doing a partnership and a donation to them through the shirt sales. And then again, you get a really nice feeling, nice quality shirt with a beautiful symbol on it that not only helps enhance your energy field, but you affect everybody else around you. You know, sacred geometry is protective. It's protective.
I was actually going to ask you the crystal that you mentioned that is infused, and what are the characteristics of that one, or like what is that one known for?
So I'll show you.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah.
How cool.
So Andaras are kind of a mystery.
Cool.
Monatomic glass, and they come in many colors.
Wow, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And so they're legitimately found in only one place in the world, and that's the Sierra Nevadas, and the property of a lady named Lady Nellie. And she found them in February. The first Andara was found in February of 1967, which is the year and month of my birth.
Oh, wow. That's
cool. You're February too? What day?
26th.
Very good. I'm February 3rd. Are you Pisces or Aquarius?
I'm Pisces. My daughter's a February 3rd Aquarius, though.
Wait, your daughter is the same birthday?
Yeah.
Well, that's a synchronicity.
Yeah.
Go Aquarius. The water bears.
And my rising is Aquarius too. So Aquarius is the water bear. Aquarius is the Atlantean. Pisces is the feminine. It's Lemurian. And in between, I'm a Libra moon. So my role to balance the masculine and feminine, to balance the Atlantean Lemurian energy is like, it's written in my chart.
Okay, I'm Libra moon as well.
All right, right on. What's your rising?
Scorpio.
Okay, so you got a lot of water in you.
Yeah, I really do think I'm a mer person.
No, I think you both are. I see that
Oh,
a
wow.
lot in both of you. So the Andaras and I are we're very aligned because we kind of came into the world at the same month and year. And the properties of the Andara is they work directly on the heart and DNA. So they're kind of like light condensed into matter. So if you could take a ray of light and condense it into matter and hold it in your hand, that's what an Andara is like. They are living beings. They have a living frequency to them. And so this is called an elder. The elders are kind of the light green and the seafoam green and the brown ones. And they hold very deep earth wisdom. They're like the grandparents. And I sell Andaras on my website too, by the way. Julie, beautiful. Like this is an Andara.
Oh, is that? Oh,
I was
cool.
about to
I was
say,
wondering, yeah.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening, she has this beautiful heart gem that she's wearing. It's gorgeous.
It was.
Sorry.
There's a lady on Kauai who cuts these on a diamond saw and shapes them, and she does my jewelry for me and wraps them really, really exquisitely.
It looks like the heart of the ocean.
It is the heart of the sea. It's the heart of the sea. See, you're so smart. You're so smart.
I'm killing it.
So the colored pieces are more like the teenagers. They're very active. Their energy is very active. And when you hold them, they're very alive. And sometimes when people try to sleep with them, they can't because they're very chatty.
Oh, interesting.
Most people can't sleep with two of them at once because they talk together. So you bring in an elder, and the elder grandperson, go to sleep, go to sleep. But they all work on your heart and on your DNA, and they're very magical to hold and to have. And if you can't get an Andara, then you can get, a magical crystal infused shirt with Andara dust in it.
Oh, I can't wait.
That's so neat.
So I'm not sure if we were able to, we went through a lot, and I don't know if we're backtracking a little bit, but I did want to just hear about and learn really about the connection between Atlantis and Lemuria.
I was just thinking about that.
Okay. Because I don't know the difference, and I would just really like to learn about that.
So the original landmass was called Mu. That was the motherland. The great motherland of Mu was in existence before Atlantis. Over time, we'll call it time, the land of Mu became Lemuria, and Lemuria, Mu was in existence long before Atlantis. And the Lemurians were very right-brained, very earth-loving, peaceable, more like indigenous type of people, live very close and symbiotically with the earth. We're fully realized fifth dimensional beings in a third dimensional body. They were the feminine. When Prime Creator decided to start the Atlantean experiment, at one time, Atlantis and Lemuria were together. Okay, they were land masses that lived side by side, and Atlantis held the masculine, the balance, and Lemuria held the feminine. And that at some point during their incarnation together, the left brain Lemurians, who were very scientific and were very technological, kind of thought themselves to be superior over the Lemurians, who again were very earth-loving, very unity-centered. And so they decided to kind of overtake and enslave them, and decided that their civilization was not, on par with the advancements they were making, which again is very similar to what has happened here with, with certain groups of people and indigenous people on this planet, where, they have not been validated for their relevance and their importance for what they bring culturally, what they bring through their practices, through their spiritual practices, and they've been, suppressed and all the things we know. So there was a war between Atlantis and Lemuria, in which the Lemurians suffered very, 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 very greatly. And there are many people who remember being a Lemurian at that time and being very oppressed by the Atlanteans during that war, or killed or enslaved. And so there was a great imbalance at one point created between these two land masses. It separated them from unity and essentially separated them. And I believe, and it broke apart the macrocosm idea of a masculine and feminine balance. So I believe that the imbalance or the kind of dissolving of the masculine and feminine in humans that we're striving so hard to get back from came from that era, from that war and that falling apart of Atlantis and Lemuria, and eventually the destruction of Lemuria. So that was one revelation, or one experiment, or one incarnation of Atlantis and Lemuria. Lemuria went down and never came back. Atlantis came back for a couple of more evolutions, kind of trying to balance and rebalance that. So Lemuria, if you're a Lemurian person, if you feel a resonance with that, then neither one of them are better than the other, or right or wrong. It's just an energy frequency, right? And so we have been trying as humans to get back into balance with our masculine and feminine, since the dawn of humanity, since we became human here. And the mending of the Atlantean and Lemurian energies, like the mending of the people, the mending of the energy is part of my job here, to bridge that, kind of like a liaison. And then the forgiveness for the Lemurians towards the Atlanteans is very important. And then the Atlanteans' recognition of, we didn't do right by you, like that was not a good thing, which is also something we're trying to heal on this timeline, right?
Right. And we're trying to, like you said, course correct.
Yes. Yes.
So what are some daily things that we now in this dimension can do to course correct?
Okay, so the other thing I will mention is that Kauai is the heart of Lemuria. All the Hawaiian Islands, all the Polynesian islands are Lemurian.
Is that where you live?
Kauai, yeah, I live on Kauai.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I saw that,
the heart of the Lemurian civilization. And people come here and they freak out.
I think I'm going to plan a trip.
Yeah, absolutely should, because they come home. Like this home, this land, because it was original land mu, whether you're Atlantean or Lemurian, you come home and you fall to your knees on this land because it is so beautiful and so vibrant, and you have come to a different world, a different energy. This is a fifth dimensional island, and it's beauty everywhere.
Wow. So how,
healing,
besides like the feeling and just like this knowing that Kauai is the heart of Lemuria, how do you really know? Like, were there maps, or were there,
by legend, mythology, and by what your heart and soul says, and that the ancestors, the Lemurian ancestors, and the indigenous ancestors, even some of the ancient Hawaiians will validate that this was something else before they came, the Polynesian islands. And it's just kind of like one of those generally known things, that like Atlantis is more East Coast, Florida, Eastern Europe, across the ocean. And then the Lemurian was more the Pacific side. So it's just kind of one of those generally known type of things.
Interesting. And never take a rock from Hawaii.
Never take one of Pele's rocks.
Never.
You cannot have one of her stones. That's very bad kuleana.
That's really bad. Yeah. So this fun fact, but in Hawaii, they get so many stones returned back through the USPS. It's insane. People return them because they're like, I'm kind of cursed, so I'm going to give this rock back.
Yep. That's a real thing too. These legends, these myths are a real thing. And you're right about that. The return rate is like really over the top.
It's crazy.
People just don't know. People just don't know.
Or they don't believe it, and then they have to learn the hard way,
Right.
So, okay. Another question I had too, you were talking about healing codes, healing water codes.
Yes.
For somebody that doesn't know, for me too, I what is like a water code or a healing code, and how can you integrate that into healing ourselves?
Really great question. So in my belief system, we are born with every encoding DNA symbol, whatever in the universe, because we are the universe, right? We have it all within us. We don't always know we have it within us until it activates. And some people will activate spontaneously, like when you have an awakening. Some of these codes and symbols will activate even if you don't know what's happening. Some of us activate through other healers and teachers who hold the lineages and the ability to awaken what you already naturally have. Okay, so if you are, so if I have all encoding and all symbols in me from all elements and all time, I will be drawn to work with or awaken what I feel resonant with. Like for me, it's water. Like I'm a water being. I'm all about the water, and I've spent a lot of my time and energy and practice, like awakening those water codes within myself through prayer, through meditation, through being water rituals, through talking to my water guides. And I can have the assignment to help awaken those codes that are naturally in you or anybody else, should you want this. No, I am not here to awaken fire. I'm not here to awaken earth. I'm not here to awaken air. Somebody else can awaken those in me, but I cannot transfer that or do that for somebody else, because that's not my lineage. So something that's very important to me and important for me to teach my students is know who you are. Know what you are authentically here to do, and authentically what you are here to hold and transfer or talk about. Authentically, I talk about all things water. I hold all the other elements and I work with all the other elements, but it would be against my authenticity to come to you and say, hey, Nicole, I'm going to awaken your fire code. I can't do that. But you as a person, as a seeker or a teacher or someone who's looking to activate yours, all you know it in your soul and in your heart, if it's part of you, or if you need to learn more about what that is or what you hold naturally. Okay, you can activate everything on your own through spirit if you want to. You don't even have to, you have access to God. You can work with anybody you want to. But if you feel like you want to go to, sometimes we go to professionals for stuff, right?
Totally.
Somebody who's already kind of like walked the path. Somebody who's already like been through that doorway, who can take you through it, maybe at a little accelerated, or maybe at a little bit more, at a level that you might not be able to do by your own resources. Then you go see a professional, just like if you need, a doctor or massage or whoever you need in your life to help accelerating your that language or awakening that language within you. Does that kind of answer your question?
Definitely. I have a friend who might want this. Her name is me. And so I guess and it can be just kind of quick, but walk me through, like, or if anybody wanted to utilize you to awaken these codes, and this has really resonated with a lot of people and they're looking for something, what would an awakening or an activation of the codes look like? Would that just be more of an internal remembrance?
So, well, okay. So the easiest way to answer that is I'm teaching a class on July 25th on Zoom, and I'm going to actually do a water symbol activation course. So
awesome.
if you're listening to this broadcast after July 25th, I'm going to record it and it'll be on my website. So you can pick it up after the fact. If you're listening to this before, then you can join the class. I'll have, a group with me, and I will essentially take my group through, and it will all be people who resonate already with water. Like they know that's something that's important for them. And I'll talk a little bit about the history of water and Mintaka, like we've talked about. And when you hear the stories and when you hear the mythology of whatever you're interested in this case, water or Mer or Atlantis, when somebody tells you and gives you that left brain knowledge of this is how it happened, it automatically starts to churn those symbols and awaken it's kind of like you start remembering. It's not even like you're taught, it's like remembrance, right? You go, oh yeah, and you get the goosebumps and you get the chills, and you have somebody activate your remembrance of just what you hadn't remembered yet. You just came in, you forgot. And so when you hear somebody else talking about this and explaining it to you and quantifying it and putting it in terms that because our left brain needs to understand everything. The right brain's the whole creative side and the whole nebulous, like I see it all, but I can't make any sense. I break things down very tangibly and specifically, and so that the left brain gets that satisfaction of going, okay, now I understand, it makes sense what my left brain is like trying to tell me that I can't make any sense out of. Okay, so there's that piece of my teaching. And then we will go into, I do regression therapy. We'll go into a water regression, and I'm going to take my class into their own remembrance of themselves in the water and those codes, and like visualizing and seeing those codes that are in you, maybe the ones externally you worked with in water, like the dolphins do, the sacred geometry, and then get everybody to kind of write as best you can, draw as best you can at the end, your own specific codes, or anything you see, anything you heard. Sometimes I do some toning and chanting, because I hold the water in my field, just that transfers, if either one of you are Reiki attuned, if you've had Reiki, you get a symbol, right?
Right.
Your Reiki master puts a symbol in you, a specific symbol. So the transfer of energy my students get from me are the symbols that I hold and can not only transfer but awaken the ones that are within you. And then you have your own personal symbols also, your own water symbols and things that you'll be able to bring down and utilize that for your own healing. If all you ever use it for is a healing in your own body, you've done your job for God. We really just need to heal ourselves for God. Like that's the number one job, right?
Yep.
Anything
it's all within.
Above and beyond that is just icing on the cake. So if you decide you want to talk to other people, you want to work with water specifically, do water rituals, go down to the ocean, to the lakes, to your bathtub, and use your symbols and use your hands, because it will come through your hands and hearts to heal waters. And it's really just about raising that consciousness, that level of consciousness of water that is so important and so so infused within all of us, that water life force, bringing it up within ourselves and then adding that to the planet at a consciousness and a frequency level if we want to.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's really neat.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. It's like for us human beings, it's difficult to know what our purpose is. We have to find it. As we're not like cats or dogs, like they're born and they know like what their purpose is. We have to find it. And so if you guys have found this podcast and are listening to this, there is a reason for it. So thank you for doing the work and, by pressing play, honestly, sometimes it just takes by pressing play. And Ameera, thank you so much for coming in. I think Nicole, do you have any other questions before we wrap up?
Before our last question?
Yes, before our last question.
I guess, I think the two questions we usually ask at the end. So one before the last question would be, is there any message that you kind of want to broadcast that's on your mind at this moment to just kind of close us out?
Yes. This is a water planet. This came in as a water planet and it will go out as a water planet. And as we raise the, energetic and the metaphorical New Atlantis, which is about the law of one and is about unity and is about, it's not about sameness where we're all going to dress the same like on Star Trek, right? We get to be individuals and have our individual identity. Ego is not a bad thing. Your individuality and how you like to wear your hair and the clothes you like to wear and your Nikes are not a bad thing. Going into unity and oneness is not about giving up our sense of self. It's about understanding we are the individual sphere and we are part of every sphere that is connected in the flower of life. We're part of all of it and honoring all of it. So as the metaphorical consciousness of the New Atlantis begins to arise and the New Lemuria, the physical New Atlantis is going to rise also, which means land masses and land formations are going to change over the next years. And I don't like to get anybody too excited about, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? But part of the agreement to transform this planet is that, land masses are going to come and go and souls will enter and souls will exit as this planet transforms and renews herself. And we will see the waters rise and we will see continents go up and down, and we will literally see the new Atlantis in the form of land and land masses come up out of the oceans. And when that time, as we start to approach that time, and as so many changes are happening on this planet that are, people are exiting, right? People are leaving. Not everybody's contracted to stay here. Remember that we are eternal beings. You are an eternal being. I am an eternal being. There is no death. There is maybe the completion of this form in this existence, but the soul of you and the heart of you goes on and on forever and ever in a different form. And as people come and go, or as maybe even, our soul chooses to exit or enter on this timeline, we are eternal beings, and nothing and no one is ever lost in the mind of God.
I like that. Yeah. Lot, huh? Yeah. It's a lot to
I'm just taking it
integrate.
Integrating it. Okay. So for the final question, the last question that we have for you is, what is one song that penetrates your soul?
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. Do you know a band called Stick Figure? They're a reggae band. They're
neat. I love
super conscious reggae band. Like
cool.
The best reggae, best reggae you'll ever hear. I love all of their music because of the messages in it. And there's a song that's been on my mind. Okay, so there's two songs that I really like. The first one is
I'll allow it.
It's called Easy Runaway.
Okay.
And if you just listen to it, it's really just a song about how how being in joy and that everything is okay. I'm making like much more light of how profound this song is. All of their music is super fun party music, but it's like the messages in it are like, yeah, oh my God, it really is like that easy just to love and enjoy and appreciate life. So Stick Figure, Easy Runaway. And then there's a really old song by an artist probably you two have never heard of called, oh God, what's his name? Donahue, I'm going to call him. He wrote this song called Atlantis. It's literally called Atlantis. And in the first part of it, he speaks about the beautiful ships of Atlantis and the people of Atlantis. And then the song breaks into this lyric that says, way down below the ocean is where I want to be. She may be talking about Atlantis falling.
Oh, so cool. I feel like I have heard that before. I feel like I've heard that one.
You probably have.
Yeah.
Probably have. Your mom and dad probably played it.
Is it by Donovan?
Donovan, yes.
Okay.
Donovan, that's it. Yeah, quick Googling. Good for you.
I got it right here.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We ask every person that comes on that question. We have a playlist on Spotify. So it's really interesting to see it all come together and how everybody, all of these different songs. And you're the first reggae one. So
yeah, right,
we're excited. Right and of course you would be reggae. Like, we go
out on the beach and we have some nice White Claws and listen to some reggae and life is good.
Life is good. Life is good. Where can people find you?
So my website right now is going in a transition. I'm rebranding to Ameera Atlantis, www.ameeraatlantis.com. That's where you can find, me talking about the myrrh, my healing sessions, regressions, all those things. And then it's also connected to my website, which is wisdomware.org. So that's kind of all connected in there. You might find me under Ameera Beth Myrrh Healer because that's still active also, that website, but it's all the same. And then I've got my YouTube, which is still under Ameera Beth Myrrh Healer, and my Instagram, which is wisdomware_Kauai. And I mean, you can come to Kauai and find me too.
Oh, cool. I would love to go.
It's challenge accepted. Is that an invite?
That's the best place to come find me.
Of course. And we'll add everything in the show notes too. So anybody that's listening, you can just click on the episode details and everything will be listed right there. And Ameera, thank you so much. This has blown me away. And we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for stepping into the game with us.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to express myself.
Always.